Hi, welcome back to Overheard on Social, the podcast for people who want a bit of a mix of influencer marketing news, social media tips, pop culture, and interesting chats with interesting people. I'm here with my GOAT co-host, Matthew Wyatt. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Today, we're really excited. We're doing a bit of a creator chats series with two very amazing creators that I was lucky enough to meet at an International Women's Day event a couple of weeks ago, Jane and Beryl. Hi, lovely to meet you.
Hi.
Hello, Jane and Beryl here.
Jane and Beryl here.
Hi, Joe and Matt here. No, okay. We won't do that. So I'd love for you guys to just introduce yourselves first and tell us a bit about each of you.
I'm the Jane part of the partnership, and we have known each other for 30 years. Great friends. We met at a baby group when we both had small children. Well, babies, obviously. We've been friends ever since.
And our friendship is down to the fact that she wore exciting earrings.
I think that's very important, though, because you can recognise...
You know, when you first see somebody, if they've got exciting earrings, you go, oh, hello.
It's a talking point.
So you've got exciting earrings on today.
These are quite
I've
exciting.
trained
These
her up, you see. It's taken me 30 years, but I've trained her up.
Yes, Paris flea market, quite exciting earrings.
And you've just come back from Paris, is that right?
We have.
Yes, we have.
What were you up to there?
Well, we were purportedly on holiday, but we did a bit of content creation while we were there.
As is what happens these days.
Yeah, life and content.
Yes,
Swiped
overlap.
into each other, don't they? Yes.
So can you tell us a bit about how your content creation journey started? When did you start creating?
Well, really only just over a year ago. We had an Instagram account for some time, but it was what I like to call a bit moribund. It wasn't really doing very much. And then we were actually going to see my mother for her 95th birthday. We were driving across Salisbury Plain, and we decided to stop and have a little cup of tea. It was just after COVID, wasn't it? I think really when we were still, during COVID, we'd taken flasks around with us everywhere because you couldn't get cups of tea anymore.
You know, when you could just meet one other person, we
would
sort of meet with our
and take a flask
out in the open.
So there we were. We stopped in the middle of Salisbury Plain and thought, oh, we'll have a cup of tea. So we filmed it. I don't even really know why we filmed it. We were in a churchyard.
know why.
We stuck the thing on the phone on a gravestone. We didn't have anything, to do it with properly.
Yeah.
And we made this little film. And my daughter said, "Oh, why don't you stick that on TikTok?" And we said, "Well, what's that? We don't even really know what it is." So we downloaded TikTok, stuck it on TikTok, and then within 36 hours, we had 2.5 million views.
Really? On your first video?
Oh, yeah.
I think actually
Crazy.
technically it was the third one. I cannot tell a lie, but it was close. Very close.
Wow.
So you had a viral hit almost
Straight up the bat.
instantly.
Almost straight,
Pretty much
yeah.
instantly.
Yeah.
Did you have the opening line that you do?
I think we did do that. I honestly
we
can't even
did.
remember. It
Yeah,
was all
we
done
might have
so
done.
just off the cuff. And we weren't thinking about, creating content, as it were.
Yeah,
at
so it
all.
wasn't like you'd sat
Yeah.
down and
No,
thought, oh, we're
not
going to
at all.
start,
Not at
we're
all.
going to
No.
pursue a career in being
not
a TikTok
at all.
creator.
Not
No,
at all. As I
not
say,
at
we
all.
barely even
No.
had heard of it.
The whole thing is completely serendipitous. We
fell into it. We sort of fell
happened.
into it.
Yeah.
And so from that day after, we thought, oh, this seems to have rather worked.
Oh dear.
Make some more.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah. And I was in denial for a few days.
Yeah, she was.
In
She was
Cornwall, in
completely-
denial. I wouldn't even. She used to phone me and go, oh, it's happening. I go, no, can't be. Stop it. Yeah.
That's where the laughs started. But in that first one, we just drank tea. And I think we talked about our clothes. We had fake fur coats on
Because it was so cold.
because it was absolutely
It's January.
freezing. That's how it started.
Can you
That's how it
just
started.
describe what type of content you make? What's it about?
Oh, well, what's it about?
How would you pitch yourself?
Well, what I would say is it's on the surface, it looks like it's about fashion, but it's really about friendship, and it's about people of a certain age still having the kind of fun that young people have, and that very much being the vibe of it. So, I would say it has layers, like many good things. It has layers.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. And the feedback we've had from our viewers is very much along those lines. They basically can't seem to believe that you can actually have fun when you're over 25. And I think we've shown them that you can. And I think that's been actually a great thing about it, that we've really enjoyed being able to do that. And it was an unexpected consequence. We never thought that would be a consequence. I don't think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And
yeah.
I really like that. We both really like the fact that it's given people hope that, just because you're older doesn't mean to say that life stops, doesn't mean to say you can't have a good time, doesn't mean to say friendship stops. You can do all the things.
Doesn't mean that
you
you're not
do.
interested in the things you're interested in now.
Yeah.
That all that continues.
Yes.
I think that's lovely as well, because I do actually think there's not a great representation of like older friendships. It sort of feels like often when you see the depiction of friendships online or in media, it tends to be sort of people in their teenage or 20s or maybe early 30s,
Yes,
but
it does,
you don't
yes.
necessarily see it as much when someone's
No.
past the age of kind of 35 almost. But what were people's reactions then of people you know when you were like, we're going to start creating content for social media?
Well, it was gradual, I suppose. We didn't just suddenly say we're going to, that isn't. It evolved after that first one. It very much evolved. And then people would say to us things like, "Oh, what have you been doing?" We'd say, "Oh, well, we've been making content on social media," and they'd kind of look
we've
at
been
us.
making films for TikTok.
Yeah,
and
they
they'd
kind
go,
of look at us as if we were crazy. Really? What's all that about?
Yes,
They're a bit mystified because obviously a lot of people our age are not up to speed with any of this stuff. They're really not. And I'm not saying we are, because we're so not, and we're learning a lot all the time.
Yes.
But a lot of people are way less informed even than we are.
Yeah.
And I think they tend to lean out rather than leaning in to all of this. And so
It's
they're
seen
not
as like, oh, that's a young people
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very
What's that
much
got to do with
so.
us? It's for young
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Therefore, we don't bother with it.
Yeah.
With all these things, especially new things, if you don't lean into them, then you just kind of get left behind,
Yeah.
you know? And so I'm really all for older people leaning into it.
So when you started like actually regularly creating more content, was it again just kind of very like off the cuff at the beginning of like, let's just get together and we can film some, or did you start to have a bit more of like a strategy behind it?
Yeah, sort of logistics.
Well, we often have a kind of kernel of an idea, and then we'd go and do that, and we'd kind of rehearse it and do it, and it'd be dreadful. And then absolutely pants. And then what we do is we'd muck about and we'd film that, and it was much better.
Yeah.
So we kind of
we learned
learned
this one to
quite
one.
rapidly that actually, apart from just a little jumping off point, it's probably best not to have a big plan.
Overthink it, in fact.
Yes.
I would say best not to overthink it.
Yeah.
Best
Yeah.
to just do it.
There's something sort of intangible about like why something like this works,
Yeah,
which
isn't there
I
I
guess-
There is, yeah, absolutely.
but you know that it works, and it's just a feeling or a vibe. And like you're saying, if you over plan it, that magic can sometimes disappear. It's a dynamic thing, isn't it?
It is,
Definitely,
absolutely. It's
definitely.
interactive, not only with, obviously, Jane and I are interactive, but also the audience it's interactive with. So that magic is kind of created between between the three. It's a kind of three ways.
A throuple.
Well, I didn't
Yeah.
like to say that in public, but yeah.
When you entered the world of TikTok, especially, like what was that like? Because you said you hadn't really used it even as like
not at all.
as a user.
No,
so
not at
hadn't.
all.
No,
yeah,
no,
did you
had
did
no
you
clue.
then start to engage with other content on TikTok, and what was it kind of what was your reaction to like what you were seeing on there?
Well, yes and no, I suppose. I mean, we do scroll through, but mainly it's sort of for purposes of research to see what else is going on, I suppose, and to reassure ourselves that there's nobody else quite like us, which there isn't. Everybody certainly doesn't seem to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you said there wasn't really a plan, but do you think more once you got to know the platform a bit more, did you start to learn about like, oh, okay, this works a bit better on TikTok, or this type of thing if we add this particular caption or
Do you
anything
know
like
what?
that?
It's all a bit of a mystery.
We're just sort of learning all the time. I mean, I would love to tell you that it's some great detailed master plan, but it truly isn't.
Please don't. This is like the
it
antidote
isn't.
to all
It
of this
isn't.
stuff we
it's
hear.
not a master plan. And sometimes we think we get it, well, the only way you know of whether you've kind of got it right or not is whether other people like it.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
I've
your
taken
only feedback.
screenshots of your comment sections, which are
Yes.
all extremely positive. Like it's a
Yes,
joy just reading
yes,
through the comments.
yes.
Yeah, it is lovely reading the comments.
Yeah,
We
they
get some
are,
really, really lovely
very
comments.
sweet.
People are
So you do-
very
can-
kind to us.
Do you read the feedback and
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
Yes, and we
You're
try to
engaged.
reply to
Yeah,
everybody.
we do.
I mean, we
yes,
can't always,
yes.
but we try very hard
We
to
do
reply
our
to
very
people.
best. If someone's kind enough to leave a comment, we do
Mm.
our very best to answer it or make a comment back or interact in some way. Yeah, we do.
Following on from kind of like logistically, I guess, what is it like working with a friend?
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant.
Marvellous. It really is. Well, I've spent about 30 years of my life trying to find something that I could do with Jane that looks kind of legitimate, so that I can.
We really needed an excuse,
No,
but you know.
at one time I had to do an A level with her. You know, I mean,
What was the A level in?
Actually, art, and we both got A stars. I decided, I don't know, I'm a mother, and and I decided that I would do an A level at the same time my son was doing his A levels. I mean, as if you need that.
Yeah.
As if you need your mother competing with you.
Yeah.
Unorthodox.
I thought, well, I'll lead from the front. I'll just do an A level. Well, and so I did.
We did an A level, then we did a foundation course.
Yeah, and then we did a foundation course, and then
we've
actually
done-
our day job is we're really artists. But yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. I was going to ask, like, what do you do outside of the content
Well, that's what we do.
creation?
That's what we do.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we
Yeah,
both
we paint.
paint. We both
Really?
paint. Yeah.
What acrylic, oil?
Oil.
A mixture for me
Oil
at the
mainly,
moment.
mainly
yes.
oils. Yeah.
And are we abstract, figurative?
More abstract. I'm sort of semi-abstract,
Yes.
sort of landscapey. You can tell it's a landscape, but you can't tell where it is, type of thing.
Favorite painter or artist?
Ooh, well, I'm a big fan of the old dead guys. So I like Constable and Turner and
Oh, I love Turner.
love
I like
Turner
not so long
particularly.
dead guys. People like William Scott. I love.
Yeah, also great. Oh, there are so many. Gosh, where'd you
there's
start?
So many. Where would you start?
So your friendship is built on a lot of compatibilities, it sounds like.
Absolutely, that is absolutely the
Yeah,
case.
that's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yes.
We know each, and now because we know each other incredibly well, but also there are lots of things that we do like to do together. So yeah.
And how often do you hang out?
Well, with what we're doing now is we try to do it sort of twice a week. We post twice a week, and we sort of aim to meet probably twice a week to do those. But of course, it sort of it overlaps and extends, and other things happen.
I was going to say,
and
do you have
it
to
doesn't-
carve out some time to be like, this is going to be a time where we just hang out, kind of thing, where we're not creating content?
We
or does
don't
it
really
sort of
do that. We
happen?
don't, but we don't
Yeah.
really sort of hang out anymore because we just do
We just do this. But sort of. We go to the theatre together.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go to a lecture or something. We still do interesting things that are absolutely.
They're just for
not-
us.
Just
They're
for
just for us.
Just
rather
because
than
we
for-
like to do them.
Yeah. And so the channel, you started picking up more traction, more followers. Like how far down the line of you creating content would you say when you were starting to sort of take it a bit more seriously? And then you now have management as well. So like how did that kind of come about?
We were approached, so that was nice. We were approached right at the beginning, but nothing came of that. And then we were approached later on after we'd been doing it for about a year. So that's how that happened.
Why do you think you were approached? You guys are obviously unique. I think you've said no one out there like you. Why is there no one out there like you?
I think there are many reasons for that, aren't there?
Yeah, I think that's hugely complicated. You've got to have some time in your life to do this. People of our age often have a lot of commitments.
Yeah.
So you've got to think you might have older parents, because you might be the jam in the sandwich, you still have your commitments to your children and maybe your grandchildren, but you also might have an elderly parent, say, or a partner who's not very well. So there's a lot of reasons why people wouldn't consider doing this because it's very time consuming. So I think that's one of them.
That's definitely, I think, probably one of the big ones, isn't it? You also have to be incredibly flexible. You have to be able to do things when things come up and, not always to your convenience. And that's fine. We're in a position to be able to do that. So that makes that okay. As we've said before, I think a lot of people are quite sort of suspicious of social media. They don't really understand it. They don't know what it's all about. So they would just be like, oh, where do I start? It just wouldn't cross their minds, I think, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It only really crossed ours because, I say, my daughter said, why don't you put this on TikTok? If she hadn't said that, none of this might ever have happened.
Even if you hadn't made that video, the spotlight would have shone on you
Well, that's
somehow.
very kind of you,
That's
Matt.
very sweet of you to say.
I don't know about you. I'm not sure I like the spotlight in some ways. I still get a bit like, oh, and yet I'm such a show off. So it's like, So there's a bit of discomfort around that really as well.
Yeah, but maybe that's what makes it feel quite genuine as well, that it doesn't feel like you're actively seeking the spotlight. It does feel like you're just two friends who love doing it together.
No, it was an
true.
accident.
The whole thing was a happy
Spotlight's been
accident.
a bit of an
Yeah.
accident. So yeah.
One thing I think is kind of rare to hear on social media or TikTok is laughter. And
Yeah.
You guys
we're big gigglers. Yeah.
and I love that about your content. It's part of that positive space on social media that is
yes.
slightly
Well,
smaller
when you
than-
scroll, there's an awful lot of. I remember that the first thing that struck me actually when you were talking about when I first looked at it. What struck me was it was an awful lot of moaning. There were people, there's some old guy with the camera walking to the park saying, "Oh, I really hate this place." Moan, and it was just terrible. It was just all moaning. There was nothing positive about it, which is why, of course, it gets a bad name because negative things which aren't nice to watch. And I was thinking, well, why are people looking at this? This is terrible. It's awful. Whereas obviously we are hopefully the antithesis to that. Hopefully when people do see us, they think, oh, this is a bit of a laugh. It brightens, and we know from what was said. People say, oh, it really brightens our day when we.
And just so they feel quite comforted as well.
You guys should be therapists. I think.
Dr.
You
Ruth.
just want to.
I feel like lighter.
Yeah. Do you feel lighter? Yeah. Yes.
So how has the content evolved, I guess, over time? And do you approach, because you do Instagram and TikTok,
We do.
right?
We do.
Do you approach the two platforms differently, or do you kind of treat them fairly similarly?
Well, we're very much aware that we're talking to a different audience, I would say. Well, I
Yes,
think from what
yes.
we gleaned. And so we do try to sometimes gear things a bit more
Yeah.
to one or the other. But do you know what? Often we get that completely wrong.
Yeah,
We think to
yeah,
ourselves,
I know.
this will be a really good one for
I
Instagram, we
love
think.
this on Instagram. It's so pretty.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
No.
Yeah, because the stereotype is kind of that Instagram is more
no.
like filtered. It's a bit more
Yes,
edited, high
presented,
quality,
a little bit more,
produced.
what's the word?
And that TikTok's more
Curated, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes,
curated
yes.
feed, whereas TikTok's a little bit more kind of chaotic and fun and comedy and things. But yeah, they're sort of morphing a little bit more into each other.
Do you
I think
think
aren't
that's
they?
the way it's going?
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Who
I did
knows?
hear an interesting thing this week that some people are referring to it as like premium Instagram, which is where you can still have social first content, but it's a bit more highly produced. It's a bit more like luxe feeling and edited. But I would say increasingly you start to feel that they are sort of a bit more similar than they used to be.
Well, there's that whole thing of people that haven't got TikTok but have Instagram just end up having recycled TikToks a month later.
And then what was like your first brand partnership then that you did? Do you remember?
eBay.
Lovely.
Lovely
Oh,
eBay.
yeah.
I know.
Which we had within literally I think about 10 days of getting the viral
Oh, wow.
one.
It was like really off the bat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't even realised. I was just looking through some stuff the other day, and I just found an email or something, and it was said, it said something like January the 30th. Well, we only started on January the 10th, so that was literally.
So how did it come about? Was this through management or?
No, they
No,
just
they just
contacted us.
contacted
They
us.
just emailed us. So eBay emailed us hilariously. We went, oh, hello. Oh, yeah, eBay. Yeah, just like eBay.
And do you remember what was the content?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
They asked us to make 3 films. They wanted us. They loved our vintage tea party thing.
And we wear a lot of vintage clothes, and
Say-
pre-love stuff is
So,
quite a big
and
thing
we
for
love
us.
pre-love stuff. So it was a very, very good fit for us.
It was
Yeah,
a perfect
yeah.
fit for us. Yeah.
And then since then, have you got any kind of memorable partnerships that you've done that you really enjoyed or that worked really well?
Well, we did one for a company called Secret Escapes recently. We went to a hotel.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
Called Thornbury Castle in Gloucestershire, and actually that was great. And it worked. Again, it worked. I think it was a very good fit for us. They wanted us to dress up in Tudor costumes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which we
yeah,
did, obviously,
yeah,
with
yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Because that's right up our alley.
I got to be Henry VIII. That was typecasting, obviously, because I looked
With
so
the head
much like Henry
still
VIII.
on, the head still attached.
yeah. And that was really good fun, and I think that came through on the
Yeah.
content. So
Yeah.
you could see that we were just having a really great time, which we did. I mean, we genuinely had a great time, and I think that obviously shows when that happens. Plus, it was an experience, and I think in a way we're more comfortable doing experiences. Maybe I don't know. I think that kind
Than
of also-
products,
Yeah,
you
I
mean,
think that
yeah.
all kind of works for us. Would
I
you
guess
say?
products, it does make it harder to kind of like shoehorn in the
It's
product
harder
in
to
some
be
way.
natural, which maybe we haven't quite got that yet. But that comes with practice, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. And especially, I think if it's products you actually really like or you genuinely use, but I still think it is hard to find
Oh,
a
it's
way
hard,
to
yeah.
like
To make it
factor
look
it
natural,
in. Yeah. Whereas an
and
experience,
authentic.
you're naturally, you're showing
Exactly.
it by doing the experience.
Exactly.
So it's a lot
Exactly.
easier.
Yeah.
This all came about sort of by accident.
Yes.
You didn't intentionally try and get brand deals. But then the brand deals are coming in. But how do you feel when suddenly you're like, oh, this is a revenue stream?
I have to say, it was really fun. The really funny moment. So I was talking to a guy on an art course I was doing, and I said, well, I was doing a lot of painting, but I said, I've had this side hustle, and the side hustle has kind of taken over a bit. And he went, what's the side hustle? And I went, well, it's, and I said, now I'm making films for, eBay, and we've made one for a company called Pleasing. And he looked at me and he said, people dream of this stuff. I said, you're making out like it was some sort of accident. I went, well, it was. It was an accident. I said, we could be dishonest and say that it wasn't an accident, but it truly was.
But also, you still took that leap that a lot of people wouldn't, and you continued it, you persevered with it, which again a lot of people might do one and not continue.
Sure, because we post twice a week, and we absolutely make sure we do that. On a Monday and a Thursday we have to do that, and that has become, I suppose, a priority, hasn't it? In a way,
it has.
We make that sure that does happen very regularly.
Yeah. Now that you've worked with kind of several brands and you've done different campaigns and different types of content, like, how is the best way you find to work with a brand?
Well, what we like really is for someone to say, go somewhere, experience this, and let's see what you come up with, because that's where the authenticity lies. Once brands start trying to say, oh, we really want this, or we really want that, or can you include this, or can you include that? Unless it's only done in the very gentlest way, that can be very tricky, and then it all goes horribly wrong.
And it becomes really quite kind of clunky. And when they go, we'd really love a product shot just about now, and you're going, oh no. Do you really?
And also, we're not actresses, so
you're going to probably be able to tell if you're the audience.
Yeah, absolutely you are. Yeah. So we like to be left alone.
Yeah, I guess, do you think maybe sort of a brief, because I think we always say this with clients of provide a brief, but it's meant to be a guide, and it's meant to inspire them, and definitely communicating, the key messages and what they kind of want to land. But then, you should never be scripting, and we have to sometimes have that argument with clients where, like say, they really want here's what we want them to say at exactly this, and we want them to do this, and you think that's just, if you want that, then pay an actress to do it, but don't get an influencer to do it, or a creator.
I think it's probably because, just like in lots of ways we're learning about social media, they're also learning, because it is quite new really, and for a lot of people who are in positions of authority in businesses, they are older, so they don't really get it from their side. They don't really understand that you've just got to actually throw the ball out there and let the influencer do what they can with it, rather than trying to, because why are they asking you to do it if they like what you do, and yet they then suddenly want to tell you what to do? Well, hang on a minute. That's
exactly.
not going to work, is it?
Would you say that maybe telling you what not to do is easier in a way? Because if a brand just says
possibly,
for example, I do often think, if you're sort of like a financial services brand or something, you maybe not work with them, but naturally we've worked with some like that. They've got to be a bit more strict because they've got regulation, or an alcohol brand, for example, they've got certain regulation. But sometimes we're like, actually, if you just give the creator like a clear list of like, look, you can't do this, you can't say this because of X, Y, Z, that's maybe easier rather than trying to tell them what to do.
Yeah, I think it probably is.
Yeah, because then they can kind of just be like, okay, cool, I'll work around that. I'll come up with an idea, and I'll make sure that I don't do those things.
I think you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
Who does the editing for your videos?
Yeah.
Well, mostly you.
Me, mostly. Yeah, mostly me. And I'm not a natural editor, not in this sphere anyway. And that's been a really steep learning curve.
Do you do it within TikTok or Instagram, or like what apps? CapCut. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And if we can do it together, we do try, don't we? If we can get together and do it.
And coming up with the ideas for the videos, if you don't have like a set brand one, do you, like when you get together, then do you just kind of go, oh, should we film this week? Or do you have like a bit more of a calendar of like, oh, we want to do something around this?
No, not really.
No, it really is super off the cuff.
Yeah.
And we often sort of, if we get a brief, we often go away.
Yeah.
And then Jane will go, oh, I've got an idea. Or I'll go, well, I thought we might do this. So,
and then we'll come back together
we'll have a little brainstorm and can sort of think about it.
It's all done collaboratively, isn't it?
It's
all done.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, always.
It sounds like you've got quite interesting lives, though. And I suppose content is easier when you've got interesting lives and you're doing things and you're out and about. And like you said, you're having fun and that just comes through instead of engineering something fun.
Although we do sometimes have to do that.
We do, yes.
to be
We
fair.
sometimes- there is, the odd day in February when there's absolutely,
And it's pouring with rain, and,
and you've got to
because
think, what
actually,
can we do?
one of the things that we have found is that our audience really love if we're doing things outside.
Yes,
They
yes,
do
just
not
accept that.
like the
I did see you in a
inside.
wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, me in a wheelbarrow.
Actually, that was good, done complete. That wheelbarrow
Yeah,
one.
I mean,
They
what
did
was that for?
They did pretty well. It was just we were
Yeah.
less locking around. We were just in my garden, and we didn't know what to do. We were walking about the garden, thinking, "What can we do? What can we do?" And I saw the wheelbarrow, and I said, "Belle, get in this wheelbarrow," and we filmed it. It was just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
it was. It
and
was
that
just
was
like
that was
that.
how it worked. So
After sort of trying about 3 other things, which
Yeah.
we'd thought about but didn't work.
Yeah. So do you, from knowing what doesn't work, do you kind of, is it like views you look at, or does your audience, are they starting to tell you a bit when they like stuff or when they...
Oh, they're telling. I'm
if
going to
they
have to
don't-
bring some up.
Maybe you should read a few comments.
I've got some. They are just amazing. I found what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be both of you. It's a lot of like.
yeah, I know. It's so
Oh, eBay have
sweet.
commented on one of your videos.
they-
You're both the best.
Oh yeah,
Your
yeah.
videos brighten my day. What core is this? I need this core. Nothing
Yeah.
better than
It's
queening
old
out like
core.
this.
That's what it is.
My favorite comment is, I need 12 episodes of whatever this is, and I need it now.
I know.
It's so
They're very
nice.
sweet,
They
aren't
are
they?
very sweet. I
But do
know.
you look at like the comments? Do they ever inform you then of, or sort of like you say, you can tell now that they seem to prefer outside content. So does that make you go, oh, maybe we should try and like push that a little bit more?
We do try and many do outside content, to be fair.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's.
We try and get outside.
we do. I think we're more comfortable doing it. Maybe that's got something to do with why
maybe.
they like it. I don't know.
Sun
I think there's a
shining.
kind of
Yeah,
thing about the
exactly.
kind of
And
being
the
out in the
outdoors,
fresh
you know,
air and
Climbing trees and all that sort of mad stuff we do. But
all that stuff we do.
I'd love to actually talk about a bit wider kind of, there is quite a lack of representation of sort of, you know, when we think of influencers, I think we often think of sort of young
Very
women
young.
or young,
Yes,
models
yeah,
of
yeah.
sort of maybe in their early 20s, maybe late 20s, or I find especially when it's women, it's parenting influencers,
Yeah, there are quite
it's
a lot
mummy
of those,
influencers.
aren't there?
Yes, there's lots of
Yeah.
mummies.
Yeah, and so why do you think that is, that there's not as many of you guys?
Well, I think as we've sort of indicated before, really, I think it's because a lot of people our age don't really understand it, haven't got it on their phones, don't really know what it's all about. They're leaning out rather than leaning in. They just don't really understand it. And as we said, you know, they don't have the time to do it. Even if they were going to start doing it, they don't really have the time. I noticed that the older people that do it often tend to be actresses or people that are kind of slightly in the business
Yes,
anyway.
yes.
So perhaps have got a bit more of a handle on it. I don't know. I think that's probably right, isn't it?
and maybe someone helping them
and
behind the
maybe
scenes
somebody
as
helping
well.
them behind
Yeah.
the scenes. Yeah.
I also think actually that older people are often very kind of passionate about things. So they have their interests and they've got them all lined up and they're very protective of their time. So, you know, if they're, you know, breeding greyhounds, they're breeding greyhounds. You know, if they're running an orchestra, they're running an orchestra, and that's you know, they do that with such passion. So I think it's quite hard actually for marketing brands to sort of get into their world, because their worlds are you know, the amount of people that you meet who have really, you know, these incredible passions that have become their life and they're
Yeah,
kind of their
post-retirement,
life story,
say,
post-retirement. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like my parents after retired, they joined a tennis club. Well, they joined
there
it
you go
before they
then.
retired, and
Yeah,
now
there you go.
obsessed with. They play
Tennis
like 4
club,
times a
yeah,
week.
tennis
My
club.
dad
Oh, yes,
is
I
like
have
the
friends like
social
that.
secretary.
Yeah, oh, yes.
They do
This
the
sounds very
Friday
familiar.
night quiz.
Yeah.
You know,
The difference, I think,
obsessed with
is
it.
that whilst we're doing that skill and learning it, we're also like plastering it on all our
Yeah.
social media, and we're
Yeah.
recording it,
Yes,
and
yes,
and it's just like
yeah.
part and parcel of
Yeah.
being a young person now. is
yeah.
that
Well, you
Yeah.
grew up on it, so
You
I
grew up
guess
with
like
it, yeah.
it is harder, like you say, if you're someone who's, you know, over a certain age group, where even we, probably our age group, we got social media a bit later that,
Yes.
you know, in life. Whereas if I look at sort of like my cousin who's 20 or 21 in February, like
more of a thing.
she literally can't remember life really without social media. It's just been such a part of her life.
it's
So
different, isn't it?
you're already starting at a bit of a head start because you're just so ingrained in that
Yes.
world.
Although actually what I would say is that once you do those things, I mean, if I look at TikTok for 10 minutes, I'm always entertained. I always come out going, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I like the idea of that. Oh gosh, I need to clean out that cupboard. You know, I mean, there's always something in there that you go, oh, you know, and I think the word
Get stuff out
entertained,
of, don't you? Yeah,
I am
something out of it.
entertained. So I would say to people who go, oh, that won't be nice. No, you will be entertained. You will find your, you know, and once once it's sort of interpreted your tastes a bit, then, you know, you will get this stuff that you actually like, you know.
Yeah, it's all about curating your feed a bit more. I think
It
that's
is,
where
yes.
sort of the
Yes.
and I try and do that is I try and like, especially if you start to see, like you say, more negative content, because it can quite
Yes,
can happen like
yes.
that, where
I think you
even when you're
can.
trying not to, suddenly you start to get it. And I
Yeah.
actively try and
Not to
look
get that.
for it.
Yeah.
Look for positive
You see,
content.
I'm really big on house renovations. I love all those house renovations.
Yes,
I just love them, and I love watching those.
Yeah.
So you know, they're really entertaining. I mean, it's like a TV program, you know, but it's kind of shrunk down to 2 minutes or something. It's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
When you look at young people and kind of like how they interact online now on social, do you see it as problematic? Do you see it as just, this is reality now? Do you think it's
Well,
something
it
that's
obviously
got to change?
can be problematic. I mean, like all of these things, there are good things and bad things about it.
It's, you know, it's like the internet in general. It's like a city. There are libraries and there's theatres and there's, you know, ice skating rinks. And there are also dark alleys in which you would not take your children. I think we feel very responsible that we make very wholesome content. I mean, that is the one thing that we choose to do, because it's really important that people make wholesome content, that they make content that reflects, you know, some kind of safety in people's lives so that people don't always feel unsafe.
Yeah, I love that as an
Yeah, I
analogy.
think
That's
it's-
such a
it's
great
like-
analogy
It's really
of it being
powerful.
a city.
But I also
Yeah.
think your content is fun and light, but that is a serious element to what you're making.
Yeah, it
That
is, which was a side product. We didn't realise that. That wasn't conscious.
We would never want any of our content to be something that a child couldn't watch, for instance.
Yeah,
We would
no.
never. We would never. So we would never having to do with alcohol. We never do. People are always saying, oh, you know, oh, what's that in your teacups? Is it rum? Is it?
It's tea.
I
It's
mean,
tea in our tea.
We
tea.
We actually
drink tea.
we hardly
We-
drink at
we
all in
don't-
any
yeah,
case
I
in real
know,
life.
I
You know,
know.
in real life we don't.
I know.
And we would just never do that. And we would never. We don't swear. We don't. It's wholesome. It's
Yeah.
wholesome.
So if a brand
Deliberately say.
came to you with a really big offer for something that didn't quite align with that approach, would you turn it down?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And we
would.
have.
We would.
Oh.
And we have.
Yeah, and we have.
I think a lot of the more kind of successful creators, the reason that they've been able to have success, especially longer term, is because
They've stuck to their guns.
they've stuck to their guns. And there are a lot of creators
Yes.
I follow who really come out and say, like, if I could show you guys the money I have turned down potentially over the last
Right.
5
Not to
years,
sell out.
not to sell out and not to push things that I don't believe in. I think there are
Maybe
a
it's
lot
just me,
that
then.
don't. Maybe you.
Shallow.
Oh, no, we're shallow. Don't worry.
But I would love to also just come on to a bit of like representation of sort of your generation in, or people your age in advertising more generally. So not just social media, but across the board and in media. Like what are kind of the stereotypes that annoy you?
Let us at
Do we
it.
need like 15 more minutes?
Where
for
do we
this?
start? Where do we start? Right. I don't like. There's a symbol on the tube. Has anybody seen this? Of this
Oh,
older
yeah.
lady on the tube.
Like
You
a
could
drawing.
tell.
There's like a
There's a
drawing.
drawing. She's kind of striding out. She's okay, but she's
got a
got
dog with
cut off trousers. And it just makes me crazy in the head. I mean,
What's wrong with
what
that?
is going on? What is going on with
Well,
the
that's
heart?
like the
with
symbol of
it's
a
symbol.
sort of middle-aged
symbol of a
older
middle-aged woman has cut off trousers.
Oh,
It's
I thought
like
they
they're
were
half
back in
mast.
fashion. Aren't Gen Z wearing quite a lot of?
Yeah, but there's a kind of cut off
Yeah.
trouser.
which is kind of loose.
A
The
bit
kind of
synonymous
it's
with
kind
like
of-
coach trip kind
and,
of
and
my
vibes.
coach trip
Yeah.
trouser.
Not there's anything wrong with walking. I love walking,
It
but
is.
you know that sort of walk, and
Yeah.
and they often have a fleece. They have
Yeah,
a
a zip-up
fleece
fleece
and a
with a
kind of
zip.
loose.
Oh dear. Oh, we get a right old head spin. Don't
Yeah, we do. Yeah, yeah.
We go no.
No,
Any other stereotypes?
I don't like Mrs. Robinson either. There's an image of of the sort of sexuality of older women that comes
about
out.
The Graduate.
The
Yes,
Graduate,
precisely.
So the only slot a woman who is still, interested in sex, in being a sexual being, can have when she is over about 50 is Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah.
And
She's
she's
the
this
cougarish thing,
predatory
the pedantry,
cougar
yeah.
female.
Going after like 19-year-old
Yeah,
boys
exactly.
kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Does it not?
Well.
Well, I don't know. We're
It might
more
do,
likely
but-
to be washing their pants because they're our sons or
Friends,
our sons'
yeah.
friends. So no, we're
Generally speaking.
no, generally not.
Yeah,
Don't like
I
that one
definitely
very
think
much.
that's a really true case. It's like
Yes,
it's either
we're not allowed.
it's either
Mm-mm.
completely unsexual being and
Yes,
and,
exactly.
and
The other
all
was
about
it.
that, or
Yeah.
it's this hyper kind of predatory
yes. predatory
symbol. Yeah.
female who you know.
Yeah.
In adverts as well, do you find, because I think there is a distinct, it's getting better maybe, but there seems to be in advertising a distinct lack of, even like over Gen Z, I almost feel like we seem to get so many briefs from
Yes.
clients that are like, we want to reach Gen Z, we want to engage Gen Z, and you're like, but Gen Z also don't have much money. Like when I was 22, I didn't have the money to buy this stuff.
I mean,
and
we are the generation that's got the money.
whereas like my
Yeah.
mum
Yes.
has
Yes.
plenty of money.
I actually would define my generation as the expensive face cream generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are the people. We are the people who will buy face cream
Yeah.
for that kind of money.
Because you can also, especially
Yeah.
if you're maybe at an age where like your kids are a bit older, so you're not having to you don't have the pressures of like young sort
Yeah,
of 2-3
absolutely.
year olds,
Yeah.
and
Exhausted in that way.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you've got more disposable income. I completely understand that brands also need to be building relevance with younger people, because otherwise, you know, they need to sort of make sure that they're engaging them now for
Of
future
course, for future.
customers.
Yes, of course.
But
it is getting a bit better,
I do.
honestly.
I would say
Compared to probably 25 years ago or 30 years
Yes,
ago, which
yes.
obviously we can remember and you can't. But believe me, it was way worse. It
Yes.
was way worse.
There
It
is-
is actually
there is
getting better.
More diversity
It's slow,
in
though.
those images now. You know, you do see older women, you do see, you know, people of, you know, colour, people, you know, so
But
you
it's
do
slow.
see those
It's,
things.
it's kind of
Slow.
frustratingly slow,
It's
I
kind
would
of
say.
slow,
I don't,
but it is
I don't know
there.
what you do about that.
if you were saying to brand marketers listening, like what anything that they could do more of, would it just be actually you need to think about this more and be a bit
Yes,
more
I think so. And be perhaps a bit
inclusive,
more
yeah.
aware of it.
Yeah.
And
And not have the
realise the power.
stereotypes.
Yeah, not have stereotypes and realise the power that you've got, really. You know,
Yeah.
they've got the power in their hands, but they choose not to use it, really. I think, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
By using people who are older, as we're talking about in this case, in more marketing strategies and campaigns. Yes.
You must have stories from this content journey you've been on. Favorite moments, I suppose, of this journey that you've been
standout
on.
moments.
When we did the thing for Pleasing, for that
Is that
company.
Harry Styles'
Yes,
It is.
beauty
yeah.
brand?
Yes, it is. yes.
Did you know that he has a
Yeah,
beauty brand?
yeah.
No, of course I didn't know that.
It's a gender neutral
Although-
beauty brand,
although
so it's
we're
quite
not-
cool.
we're
It's
not
for like
about it,
yeah.
Anyway, I had to get in the water about 5 times, and because I'm way shorter than Jane. Sort of, Jane was
in a
kind
stream,
of,
by the
we
way,
was in
we
a
should
stream,
say
sort
it
of
was in a stream.
in a rivulet, right? We were in a rivulet. Because I'm way shorter. Sort of, Jane was up to sort of about here in the water. I was up to about here in the water, which was significantly more uncomfortable. So I can tell
And
you.
colder.
Yeah.
And we did have to do it 5 times. So, yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah.
We couldn't get the weather right. You know, this is the trouble because we like to do it outside, and it is nicer when the weather's good. So
Yeah.
sometimes we'll do something, and then we'll think, do you know what? Look, it's sunny. We're gonna have to do it again.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do it
Well,
again.
summer's coming up, so
They fucked
you know
us,
we're not
yes.
too far from summer now.
Yeah, it makes life a
So-
lot easier for us.
Yeah.
So everything's going well. You're making your content twice a week. You've got brand deals.
What's next? What's next for Jane and Beryl?
We'd surprise you to learn, in keeping practically everything else we've said, there is no plan. The plan is there is no plan.
No, there is no plan. Yeah.
We're just letting it roll. We're just
Yeah,
letting
you
it
see
roll.
what
We're seeing what
happens.
happens.
If you had a dream brand you'd love to partner with on something, what would it be? Think big.
Gosh.
We're very entranced by the idea of very, very posh train travel.
Oh, yes.
The Orient
Yeah,
Express.
The Orient Express.
Yes.
The Orient Express.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Orient Express.
Yes,
we
yes,
would.
that would be good.
We'll leave it. We'll take the one to Scotland though.
Yeah.
We're not proud, are we?
We'll take one anywhere.
Yeah.
Take a train
What's
anywhere.
that
We
One
like
that
trains.
goes from, I know someone, they did it, it's from like, it's all across Europe or
Goes
something.
to Istanbul. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
have that one.
that one.
Yes,
would be
that
cool.
one.
Very good.
Yes,
Yeah,
that one
yeah.
would
Let's
be
throw that out there.
lovely.
Yeah,
throw
yeah, yeah.
Throw that into the universe.
What
That would be
about
good.
any fashion beauty brands?
We quite
So
like to
many.
promote British brands if we possibly can.
Yeah.
Yes, we do like to do that mainly. Yeah.
Can we do a fit check with each of you? I hear that's what they call
What's a
it.
fit
What's
check?
that?
That doesn't sound like something we would
Fit?
Don't worry, we're not going to have you
that's
doing
just
like
silly now. Come on.
CrossFit.
Yeah, we haven't got to get on a, you know. a-
Fit check.
It's what the young people call. Take us through your outfit.
Right.
Oh, yes. So-
okay. From starting off, this is a Chloe shirt which I bought secondhand. It was actually a frog, and so I've cut it off. Which, when I took the scissors to it, I was like, I don't actually believe I'm doing this. I don't believe
But
I'm
I encouraged her,
but
and she did it anyway.
She encouraged me, so I did it anyway. These are Mint by Mint Velvet.
I love mint velvet.
And they have a premium brand, which I particularly like, which is called Mint. And this came out of Marks and Spencer's.
So this is a Gerald Durrell shirt, which came secondhand. Can't remember where from now, but secondhand. This is it came from a charity shop, a make called Woodhouse, but I've never heard of it before. These are from Me and M, and the boots also came from a charity shop.
There you go.
Yeah, quite.
Lots of pre-love.
Yeah, lots of pre-loved. Yeah.
Well, final question. If there was like one thing you'd like people to leave thinking about after listening to this, what would it be?
There's fun to be had all your life. Don't be
Exactly.
scared. Don't be
Yes,
scared about getting older.
absolutely.
You can have
Don't
a
be
great time.
scared. Yes. And there's so many unexpected things that can happen to you, and they can happen to you at any time in your life. So I remember thinking when, sort of, I'm quite honest about this, I turned 60, and I remember going, ugh, that's that then. Wrong.
It was all just taking off.
It was all just taking off. So please don't think that. Please don't think that, and please don't think that youth will be the happiest time in your life. It might not be. You might get, even statistically, people get happier as they age, which is, a great thing.
That's a great note to end on. Well, thank you so much, Jane and Beryl, for joining us.
Our
I
pleasure.
loved
Our
chatting
absolute
to you.
pleasure.
It's been lovely to meet you both.